Scott Robertson's How to Draw is probably one of the most misunderstood art textbooks that I know of. In this video, I will explain why this book is invaluable to any beginner's skill set.
When we have an idea for something we want to draw, we need a way to relate that to how we see. That's how the beginning chapters of this book starts. It starts with a familiarity of the horizon line, vanishing points, center of vision, and station point. With familiarity of these concepts, we have a system to describe how the object sits in space on each axis. You start with your side view of your object and an orthographic view, and a top view respectively. In this view, you simply have the scale and positions of things flat with no perspective convergence. You only have absolute scale in this perspective. That's what these ellipses and squares are for. If you know how to establish a proper ellipse in perspective, you have an exact scale unit in perspective. If you establish your scale units depth-wise and height-wise, you can project accurately any object you want onto this flat surface. Now that we have established this, we have the information to build out our volume. And practicing this many times builds your spatial intuitions of how volumes actually sit in 3D space. So now we can build out the middle of our volume. We start with drawing an arc on one side, representing the middle section of our volume. And then utilizing the mirroring techniques earlier in this book, we can transfer a series of points to the other side of center line. Practicing things like mirroring these arcs is a great way to train your intuitions of how points compress in space. Getting enough points like this, we can solve the problem of a very complex arc in foreshortened space. And we can repeat these steps for the rest of the form until we have the information to complete it and find its silhouette. With a little bit of setup and technical information, we have arrived at a very complex form in three-dimensional space, projected onto our flat piece of paper. And I don't have to work just from the center line. I can work and sketch and modify the form out wherever I want to, however I want to. But when I need to tie it down and connect it to the form, I always have a way to figure out where it is on the ground or above the ground. What you get from learning how to think this way is an approach to solve all of your drawing problems in three-dimensional space. If you've struggled drawing figures in life drawings, such as foreshortening the limbs, or you just can't get the position of the forms just right, it's because probably you don't know how things are positioned on the ground and how they relate to each other. You know, you could have characters sitting in a table, the table overlapping the chairs, but you could still see the legs of the characters. Where are those characters sitting and how do they connect to that chair, which connects to the ground? And having the spatial integrity to figure out those drawing problems, to draw through the form, to solve where those are. It's very hard to guess, especially if you don't have dived into formally how these things work. So what we're doing is we're figuring out what's true in a basic sense, our starting point, our ground plane, our scale, and we keep working out from there. And that doesn't mean we always have to be beholden to that. We don't have to be tied down in a rigid way. Composition is still the most important thing. Two-dimensional appeal, the shapes of the image are still very important. But if you want to sell a scene, an idea with a naturalistic sense, and have a way to organize those ideas in a way that makes sense to the viewer in the end, a way to resolve those issues, this is how that's done. This is the information that you need to resolve your images. This is what makes pictures feel complete. By no means is it the only thing that makes pictures appealing, but the drawing aspect is a large part. Remember, it's not rules. You're not learning the rules so that you can break them. These are tools, and when you understand your tools, you have a way to make informed decisions about what you're making creatively. And that's the problem with what I hear of people saying to just learn intuitive perspective, like, you don't need all of those lines and grids and things, you know, like just gotta learn how to feel how it works, you know. Things get smaller in the distance, that's it, and just learn how to draw a box and fit things in those boxes. Well, if you don't know how to draw a proper box, putting things inside that box isn't going to help you very much. And if you don't know how to navigate that XYZ coordinate system in that box, you just have a box that doesn't help you. It's just extra steps that don't work. And yes, there is a point in your development where you just feel how it works. You just feel the perspective. And it's awesome. That's what you want. But without the hands-on experience of these formal constructions, you will never actually learn how things sit in 3D space. You cannot intuit that which has not been internalized. It may not be readily apparent, but learning how to draw and think in this way is the key to intuitive drawing. So I think that there is tremendous value in learning this material as a beginner. There's a reason why this is taught in the first years of art schools. It is foundational knowledge. This was how illustrators were taught last century and how classical painters were taught before that. A ton of your favorite artists were taught how to do this, especially if they went to Art Center. This is what my teacher was taught when he was in the entertainment design program. The class is called VisCom. I think that there's 4, VisCom 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the kinds of assignments you are doing. You are learning how to break down and build form. And when you can analyze forms, especially in your life drawing or when you're out doing plein air painting or observational work, and you can learn how to replicate and deconstruct and build these forms out in your own interpretation. So that the idea that this book is just too technical to be made practical, especially for beginners, I think is first kind of pessimistic. It assumes that people can't grapple with technical concepts, which I don't think is true. It takes time to break down information and internalize it, and you probably won't get it the first dozen tries. But if you push past the uncomfort, delayed gratification, and learn to understand these principles and techniques, you will have a set of skills that you can rely on to accurately represent your ideas.